Hi, if you like the video, please remember to subscribe.
Hi, I'm Rob from robnunphoto.com with a quick video review of the Nissin di622 Mark II flash, in this case for Canon cameras, but I believe they make them for Nikon as well, and I think they might even have a Sony one. So this is an external flash that you would use on your camera. In this case I've been testing it on my 350D. When you buy the flash, what you actually get inside is the camera in a nice little bag, a little mount for it as well, and there's some instructions in there as well. So let's get rid of that box, and you may well spy over here I've got the Nissin SC01 universal shoe cord, which is a clever little gadget which enables you to mount a flash lead on top of the camera to a flash, but it works with all sorts of different types of cameras as well, so you don't have to keep buying a different lead for every camera system you have, but we'll be looking at in a minute. So first off, let's quickly pop out the flash so you can have a look at it. Quite a nice large flash, the 622. Put it onto its little stand, and so there she is. First things first, why do you need an external flash? Why is it important? Why is it a useful thing to have in your photographic arsenal? Well, if we look at the pop-up flash on this particular camera, the 350D Digital Rebel XT, first thing you'll notice is how small it is compared to the head on the 622. So it's much more powerful having an external flash. Pop-up flashes on cameras are okay, but they're limited in the power they have, and they're not that flattering because the light's coming straight out of the camera straight onto your subject. Whereas with something like the Nissin and most external flashes, they also can do things called bounce and swivel. So what that means is we've got the head here, we've got the flash, and we can actually turn it like this. And then what that means is we can bounce the light from the flash off different surfaces. We can bounce it off ceilings, we can bounce it off walls. We can also do something called feathering. So if you can imagine I'm taking a picture of the camera and the flash is attached to another camera. Hey, let's pretend with this 35mm compact, more of which I'll learn about in a minute. What I can actually do is I can do that, and I can have the flash pointing away, so it's just the corner of the light that is catching the subject. I can put it all the way up, bounce it straight off the ceiling. I can go all the way around, I can go all the way back like that, and I can bounce it backwards off something behind. Incredibly useful. And a quick little tip for you here as well. If you are using the camera on or off, the flash on or off camera, you may well think, well, which way should I bounce the flash? And one of the tips the pros do is that whichever way your subject is facing, that's the way you bounce the flash. So imagine this is a person, the camera, and they're facing that way. I would then just turn the flash there and bounce it that way because they're facing that way. If they're facing that way, I would bounce the flash off that way, and you'll see that gives you a very pleasing effect indeed. So with something like the 622 Mark II, you can bounce flash, so that leads to more pleasing portraits, and generally makes your photographs a lot more dynamic, gives them lots more depth as well. But also on the front we also have a couple of little things. We have a diffuser, which I've just popped down there, so that helps to spread the light out, make it a little bit more softer. If you're pointing straight at somebody, because you might have to do that because of range, this will just make that light a little bit more flattering. And we've also got a bounce card. So what that means is, say you're outside and you want to bounce light, but you can't really because there's no ceiling. You can put your bounce card up and the light will come off and then spill that way towards your subject for more flattering light. So hopefully I've convinced you why it's important to have a off-camera flash. It's more powerful, you can swivel and bounce, you can bounce the light off different surfaces, which leads to more flattering and photographs with more depth to them. And you can also freeze action as well as with a flash. I'm not going to go into details here, but basically if you're taking a picture of something that's moving quite fast in dim light, because the flash only fires for like a 10,000th of a second, even though the camera shutter speed might only be a 200th of a second, that flash will help to freeze the action. But do a quick search on the internet if that's something you want to play around with. The 622 doesn't have high speed sync, So if that's important to you, then you'd have to move on to one of the other models. But in all other respects, it is a fantastic little flash. So let's have a quick look at it on the camera. So this is just on my 350D. Slides on nicely. Just do up the racket, and there we have it. Nice and lightweight, uses 4 AA batteries. If we turn it on, see it come on, and as soon as you turn it on, the flash is in fully automatic mode. So what that means is it's using what we call TTL metering, or TTL2 I believe it's on the 350D, which is through the lens metering, which means that when you take a photograph with the flash, the camera will set the exposure with the help of the flash, and the camera will set the exposure to get a nice background image, and then the flash will fire twice. Once to light up the subject to gauge how much power it should use, then fire it again. Very clever, you don't have to work out distances and f-stops like you used to have in the old days. Everything is fully automatic, and the camera will, the flash will fire that way. I don't know whether you'll actually see any of this if I fire the flash. Let's take the lens cap off, shall we? Just to give you an idea. You might have seen that. Sometimes the video doesn't capture it, but what I just wanted to capture there was the recycle time of the flash. You'll notice how it's gone to green almost straight away. Listed recycle time is about 4 seconds. I've got some brand new alkaline batteries in here. I've probably used the flash about 100 times, but it's still going strong, so it seems to be a really efficient thing as well. So you can use the flash on fully automatic mode, but we've also got several other modes here as well. And by pressing this button here, we can cycle through them. And what we're looking for is this little light here. So if we press it once, we would go to one of the other modes. But what I'm just going to take it off the camera so you can see a little bit better. Here we go. Right, so as I press this button here, now see it's gone red, so that means we're in fully manual mode now. So using these buttons here, I can control the power of the flash. And what that means is, when we press the shutter button on the camera, the flash will fire and it'll be at a brightness that I set in there. If I press the button again, it goes green, which means the flash is now acting as a slave, and a digital slave. And I'm going to show you how that works in a second. But what that means is you can now, with this flash, without any other extra things, we don't even need this cable, this will now act as a wireless flash with the camera's pop-up flash. In fact, I'll show you now. And the way that it works is that you can control the power there by going up and down. We turn the camera on, and what's going to happen is the flash is going to fire on my camera. It's going to be picked up by this sensor on the front of the Nissin, and then that will then fire the flash. So you might say, well, that means you've got to have the flash pointing towards the camera, don't you, not towards the subject? Aha, but that's where that head comes in. We can turn it round like that. Now again, I'm not sure whether you'll see this work, but I'm going to fire the 350D and we'll see if you can see the Nissin flash going off too. It depends just whether the video is going to be able to do it or not. Right, here we go. Right, you might have seen that, you might not, but trust me, it works incredibly well, even outside in bright sunlight. It's obviously got to be in pretty much line of sight with the camera. If you're inside where the light's bouncing off everything, then it doesn't really matter. But that is an incredibly useful feature. Not that useful, say, if you're at a wedding or somewhere where there's lots of people with other flashes, because what will happen is their flashes will fire off the Nissan. But if you're working by yourself with no other flashes, it works great. And the other thing to watch out for is if you're in dim light conditions and your camera fires the flash to autofocus, that will fire the flash off too. But basically the way it works under Slave Digital is that your camera flash, although you can't see it on your pop-up camera, on your digital camera, fires the flash twice. Once to meter the scene and once to actually take the picture. And the Nissin knows this, and so it only fires itself on the second flash. If we press this button again, we go on to blue. Now we're into slave film. Now this is the old-fashioned way of having a slave, and what that means is when it sees a flash from another camera, the flash just fires straight away. An old film camera flashes used to be like that, which is very, very useful. And that's why I'm showing you this nice little Olympus 35mm camera. because this little pound camera that I got from the car boot sale can actually act as a master for this camera. So if you've got an old film camera with an old flash on, maybe a flash on the top or a built-in flash like this, or maybe you've got a Polaroid camera or a Fuji Instax camera, anything like that, you could use the Nissin di622 as a slave for that system, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So let's see if we can actually get it to work now. So what I'm going to do is fire the Canon, and we're going to see if it fires the Nissin. Here we go. There we go, fired it. Amazing. So we can use this flash for everything from our digital DSLR through to any 35mm film cameras, Polaroid, anything that's got a flash, because this Nissin flash has the ability to work as a slave in a slave digital and slave film. It really is a powerful tool. If we press that button again, we go over to wireless mode. So this is where the latest sort of Canon and Nikon digital cameras have wireless built in, and the camera can work with that. But we probably just go back to fully automatic. Now that's pretty much it for the flash. You can see it does a multitude of things. It's great value for money, and I'll just quickly show you the universal shoe cord now, the SE01. Because you might well be in a situation where, you know, there are other photographers around and you can't use the optical slave facilities, and so this is where you can use an off-camera flash lead such as this. Oh, before I go on that though, you do have on here, there are a couple of ports here. There's a simple jack and there's an X-Sync lead, I think they call it as well, for using long cables. Let's have a quick look at the SE01. So this is a really clever little lead, this. So it goes onto there and you do it up, and there's a little switch, top and extension, so you could actually have a flash mounted on there as well, and you could switch between just using that flash or using the flash on the extension. So we pop that in there, we pop this onto here, and that will then allow us, you probably won't be able to see it because again the fact that the video doesn't, well, you might have seen that. You can fire that. There we go. We can fire that, and that enables us to really move the flash a long way off the camera. You know, we're talking an arm's length to give you really dynamic off-camera flash photographs. And what I'll do is I've taken some photographs of like a statue, where I've just moved the flash around in terms of bouncing it and using the off-camera flash, and you'll probably be really quite impressed by the different looks you can get. And as I said, I'm really just dipping my toe into the waters of flash photography, and I found the Nissin di622 a fantastic piece of kit to work with. It's incredibly well made. It feels just like a Canon, say 430, is it 430 or 480EX? It hasn't let me down once. It feels solid, feels really well made, and it's just a shame I've got to give it back because I really enjoy working with this flash, and thanks for the people at Canon for sending it to me to play with. So there we go. If you're an off-camera flash or an on-camera flash, but also that has slave facilities that will work with your digital SLR and your compacts, it'll also work with old film cameras, including Polaroids and the like. You know, you can't really go wrong with the Nissin di622 flash. Highly recommended. Thanks for watching.